Hey everybody, thank you for coming again tonight. Thank you for staying home with me. I am running a touch late, as you see my awkward forehead. So we are going to be painting something. We're going to be painting trees this week, and that might not sound super sexy. That might be kind of like, oh, why trees? But I want y'all to understand that trees are like so much else in that they can be beautiful, and there's a lot that we can learn from them. And I also want y'all to learn to see trees as you would a mountain, or as you would see a bush, or as you'd see a lake, or as you'd see water. I want you to look at them and not think of it as a tree. I want you guys to start learning to think of it as color and... I just dumped over all my paintbrushes. I want you all to look at it and see color and form and shape and value and all of that good stuff. So if we can work towards doing some of that, I think you'll be very successful. I've got some other stuff to talk about, so got a lot of exciting stuff going on. I've been working really, really hard over the past couple weeks on haven't had as much painting time, but I've been doing a lot of like thinking about teaching and talking to y'all that have gotten a class packs. Thank you so much. And you've given me fabulous feedback and some things that you would like to see and places that we'd like to go. And, you know, I would love to go deeper with y'all. Like, I would love to take the relationship to the next level. Just joking. But, you know, I would love to be able to teach y'all some of the stuff more in depth and like explore areas that are really kind of hard to do over Instagram Live, because the technology is okay and it's great that it's, you know, mostly free, but it's difficult to get like higher quality videos, and I can't zoom in enough, and I can't really get a good angle that shows my palette. So I've been like kind of researching and talking and thinking about it, and I have this vision for a monthly time where we like meet and we get to talk, and I can teach you guys and y'all can help me. You know, we can work together and determine like what y'all really want to learn about, and we can work together and support one another. And I can help you guys find your artistic journey, and I can help you guys find your voice in your art. So I've been working on some things with that, and I'll have some exciting things coming out in the next week. The first is that I have a color guide with some tips and tricks that is totally free that I'm going to be releasing in the next couple days. And I'll let you guys know about it. It's in the links on my bio. So go check that out. And it's a color guide. It's completely free to everybody. So just click that link, and it has some great tips about mastering color. So tonight, like I said, we're going to be doing trees, and I snapped this picture. This is a picture I took. I don't know if y'all saw my Instagram feed not too long ago, but there it was a duck in a tree. And so I took this picture, and when I was looking at it later, I realized it's actually this really beautiful picture that was composed pretty well. minus the duck, and the duck in the tree just cracks me up. But you know, it's a great photo of a tree. So this would be a great example of a painting that you can do with a tree. And the other thing, which by the way, can we just reflect on when was the last time y'all ever saw a duck in a tree? So I find it just super bizarre. So, oh, hey Kelly, good to see you. Thank you guys for joining us. So we were just reflecting on a duck in a tree. If you got the monthly class pack, I have this reference photo in there, and you can look at the duck in all of his grandeur. And the other thing I want you all to realize is that we're going to be using this color palette, and this color palette might look familiar because it is one that we used from one of the earlier weeks. And so something that I want you to realize as we're going through this is the colors that, if you've been doing this with me for several nights or several weeks, you'll see similar color recipes. As you get more comfortable with your colors, you are going to see repeats, and you'll find things that are favorite color mixes of your own. That's why I really encourage you to have a color journal of your own, so that you can keep track of like the colors that you like and how they mix. And you know, it's like I go through and I'll regularly do a color wheel and just kind of remix the colors and see what I get. And I'll go through and plan a painting, and like I was just experimenting with different blues and how they look, and you know, different ways to mix blues, and how different grade blues look next to teals, and there are green blues, and there are more purple blues, and then everything in between. And some of them are desaturated and some of them aren't. And as you start mixing, you start recording, and you get more comfortable with your materials, you will be able to do this a lot more automatically. Like everything you do, it just takes practice. And as much as I can teach you guys and tell you, you know, here's a tip, here's a hack, here's a whatever, there's just a certain amount of pure practice and labor that is going to have to go into it if y'all want to really improve and like find what you're doing. All right, so getting started on this duck in a tree, which I was like, oh, let's do trees. And now as I look at the picture, I only see the duck in the tree. So y'all tell me what you've been doing. Tell me something good that happened to y'all over the weekend. I would love to hear what y'all have been up to this weekend. We have been... All right, so I'm gonna, before I get to talking, I'm gonna tell y'all what I'm doing. I am doing Van Dyke Brown, and I'm gonna do some ultramarine blue to get a nice dark brown, not black. We are getting a nice dark brown, and then I might add some cadmium orange to get some warmth in there. And now the way the picture was originally cropped was the branch actually pretty much cut the photo in half, and so I'm going to change that because, as we've talked about, that is not good composition. So I'm gonna come through and make the tree do what I want it to do, not what it actually did in the photo. And this is, like I've said it before, I will continue to beat this drum. This is where we have artistic license. Actually, ignore this branch. This is a mess up. I'm gonna come over here. Once again, I almost accidentally put the branch in the middle. That's not good composition. your eye will, all right, so I'm just getting some rough branches just to kind of guide me as I come through this, but it doesn't really matter. So tell me something you guys did this weekend. We spent most of the weekend painting my daughter's room. We've been in this house almost a year, and we finally got I've mentioned this before, it's an old house, and so we kind of got overwhelmed by just all that needed to be done. And so it's taken us a year to get the ceilings fixed and kind of to a place where we felt like we could, taxes. Oh, yeah. We got those done too. Even in our tax situation has not been fun. All right, so quick note, as we do these trees, these two are the farthest apart trees. They're gonna get closer, and the more we go in the distance, they're gonna get grayer. So we have some perspective going on here. And actually that's not a great perspective. Messed that up. Y'all are just watching me mess up today, which is actually great because then you learn that there's not much to it. All right, so this isn't the horizon line, but this is about where eye level is. I made the perspective too forced, so we're gonna fix it by putting the trees. One thing I did a lot of street scenes when I was first getting started, a lot of urban landscapes, and you do absolutely need to make sure that your perspective is correct no matter what you're doing. Otherwise, your eyes will twitch and the viewer won't know why something's wrong, but it just won't read right. Oh, you did yard work. And y'all were able to get outside. That's phenomenal. I understand, I kind of forget because we don't really have seasons here, that, it's not 90 degrees in other parts of the country. We had a crazy thunder boomer. It was supposed to be Maine sale weekend, which was a little bit sad because this was going to be a really big art show here in St. Pete, and that clearly didn't happen, but we got a lot of yard work done and we got some housework done and we had some good family time. All right, so I'm doing some chromium green oxide and some Van Dyke brown and what did I just use? Ultramarine blue and a little bit of white. And this is gonna be, I really need to replace my palette, y'all. It's getting a little dry. This is gonna be for the bushes in the distance. That probably needs to be a little bit darker. So I'm gonna add some Prussian blue. The chromium green oxide doesn't quite get dark enough. It instantly already has a certain amount of gray to it. So the Prussian blue can go a little bit darker. Prussian blue and yellow. That's an alternative that you can do. It just doesn't, the chromium green oxide just starts out too light. You can't get the darks that you need to get. So this is, because this is in the distance, I'm graying it out, and these are going to be shadows. So they're going to be bluer and grayer, and they're not going to be as deep as shadows as this trunk that is closer to us. So that'll be a much darker black. I'm sorry, not black, dark brown. And then, yeah, we've been doing we've been taking this opportunity to really work on some house projects that we should have. So today we had a jackhammer pulling up concrete paths. Needless to say, I was not doing much painting today. I was doing a lot of office work. It was a little hard to focus because it was right outside my window. So it was like a lot of ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. All right, so these are some of the darkest values that you see in the trunk, and then these are the darkest values in the distance. Let me move that where it's not covered by all the words. And then the trees, what I want y'all to realize about the trees is that these are just, think of them as value masses. So this is just a green value mass. And what we're gonna do up here where you see the leaves poking through is we just see, ignore the duck, ignore the duck. You just see like color. Like this is darker up here. We have lots of light coming through, so this is gonna be lighter. And so just see these as value masses. And as we get further away, the leaves are gonna get a little bit grayer. So just stop thinking tree, tree, tree. Just start thinking of it as light, dark, green, brown, blue, gray. Start thinking of it like that. That will really help you master anything, because it doesn't matter if you're doing a tree, it doesn't matter if you're doing a house, a duck. You just need to see things in terms of color and shape and value. So I am putting in kind of like this middle tree, and I'm adding some, so I did chromium green oxide and cadmium orange. I'm going to do some of the darker shades of sap green, just because it's a shortcut. Sap green and Van Dyke brown, and you can, this is going to be some of the darker values. So see, I'm just coming in and just color, and I'm not going too heavy, and things are gonna peek through. And in some areas, just think light, dark. And you don't, the other thing is you don't want, it helps to have not just flat color. So, you know, that helps it look a little bit more like leaves. In some places, the leaves will overlap the trunk, and other places the trunk is going to go behind the leaves. So it's, you know, don't make the trunk too heavy. Don't make the trunk too important, because it is peeking in and around the tree. I'm sorry, the leaves. Words, Shelby. Okay, let's see. So the leaves actually come all the way down here because as they go into the distance, things are receding, and so they get closer to the horizon line. And there's also some grass down here. And I'm not going to worry about, there's like a sidewalk in the reference photo. I'm not going to worry about any of that. I don't think it's particularly important. I don't think it adds to the picture. So I'm just going to delete it and paint over it. Notice how I did not paint the duck. That's a great example of how you can edit things out. You are the captain of your own destiny. All right, so I need to fill in some of these leaves, and I'm going to make them more gray as we go a little bit farther away. And as we're talking distance, like in real life, this isn't that far away, so you're not going to get extreme atmospheric perspective, but it does just help with your perception of the eye being like, oh, this is farther away, I get it. And then, yeah, that brown tree trunk is just gonna be right there. And then I'm gonna add, a couple. Okay. So I need to come in and finish the bank by the lake. And then this is there's lots of lilies in the pond. So there's, in fact, quite a bit of the lake itself is surprisingly green. All right, so this is a lot of green. We have a lot of green going on right now. Let's go ahead and fill in the sky so that we just kind of get an idea of the water, so that we get an idea of the rest of the values. And as we do the sky, we're gonna talk a little bit about sky holes. And I'm not talking about something dirty. Sky holes are the places that you see the sky poking through in the leaves. And when you're doing things like trees, there's a lot of push and pull between negative and positive space. And so the negative space, which is not the tree, it's everything around the tree, that has just as much impact as the actual leaves on the tree itself. Like, you can really go in and entirely define something just by like, you can really define something by the space around it almost as much as you can by the actual tree itself. So I feel like this needs a little bit more warmth. Okay. So this is an example of me going in and defining the tree by the negative space. I'm gonna come in and do some tree holes and kind of show like that you can go somewhere you've never been, and if you really look at the shape of a tree, you can instantly give the feeling of a place in a landscape by just getting the shapes of the trees right. Like aspen trees are vastly different from pine trees, are vastly different from palm trees, are very different from oaks. And if you can just really, you know, when you're around or traveling or really look at the shape of the tree and look at how the sky peeks through, look at ooh, that was green. Look at not just like really look at the shapes of trees, and you'll get a big sense, you'll get a really good sense of the landscape and the place. And so if you want to give the mood and the feeling of a place, the light is one of the ways you can do it. And landscape, like the trees, is another fabulous way that you can instantly, you know, give this perception that you have been studying, and it's kind of a good way to sorry, Kim. Right now, sorry, I just start painting. Right now I'm doing, this is white and yellow, and then I've added a little bit of teal, and that's so it goes a very, very light green, and if you're not careful, it goes very green, and I'm going to use this to transition into a blue, so I'm going to add more teal as we move up the sky. So thank you for reeling me back in as I wax poetic about trees. But it's just whatever you're doing, if you're like, I mean, this picture is from my morning walk that I take with my family. It's typically, I mean, it's not, you're like, yay, a pond in the middle of a bunch of houses, and your own life is as beautiful and exotic and interesting as you decide to make it, you know? It's, dang it, just got a whole bunch of green on my brush. Paint what you know, and learn to really look at it and study it and paint it well, and you will create a beautiful world. And so once again, we've talked about this, the water reflects the sky. So I am pulling the colors, as I move up the sky, I'm pulling the colors down into the water so that they reflect. And the sky is usually more gray. I'm sorry, the water is usually more gray than the sky, but they will reflect one another. So I'm going to use a different brush. Got some. Gonna come back in and do some branches that I hadn't done before to kind of make this a little bit more interesting. define this a little bit better. And the thing is just like grass, you don't need to do every single branch. That is boring, it's too busy, it doesn't leave anything up to the imagination. Just hit enough of them so that the viewer knows, oh, that's a tree. Like, that's really all you need to do, is have the viewer say, oh, that's a tree, and that's this branch goes in this general direction. There is a shaft of light, and so I am showing some of the light as it filters through the tree and illuminates that duck. What size brush? I am using 2 right now. I'm using an 8 and a 6. And I'm using the 6 mostly because it's what I first reached for, and I wanted to define just what I grabbed. I could use another 8. It was just I don't want to, I wanted to come back in and define some of these a little bit better. And I didn't want to have to remix all the paint. So I'm going to come through, and now we're gonna go into lots of sky holes. And this is just as much about defining where the tree isn't as what type of paper am I using? I am using Canva paper. It's a mixed media paper. I find it lovely for practicing. It has a little bit of a canvas texture. It takes paint pretty well. Like, I don't paint super heavy. So now there's just, as we get deeper into the tree, the sky holes are going to be bigger towards the top of the tree. And because more light shows through by the top of the branches and less light gets through towards the bottom. Towards the base. Yep, Canson Canva paper. So, and there are a couple little, spots. I feel like this tree right here is a little too solid. A lot of light filters through on trees. I feel like this came through a little too dark. I need So right now, a couple things are happening that y'all probably can't see. I'm fighting pretty hard with my paint right now because I really need to reload all of my palettes. It's drying out. It's getting pretty dry. So I'm fighting my materials, and if it's one thing, like I told, I always say, invest in good paints and invest in good materials, because you are going to, if you're really trying to learn and you're really trying to get better, you are going to go so much faster if you're not constantly fighting your materials. So it may feel like you're wasting money, or don't think of it as that. Think of it as like investing in yourself. Because when you're fighting your materials, it gets quite frustrating. They don't do what you want, and then you aren't sure if it's you. Most of it's just one more hurdle to overcome. So y'all can't really see that, but I do want to let you know that if you are like, oh, my paints aren't doing what I'm supposed to, and you have an old palette, might be time to change it. That's what I'm currently doing. You can go into a painting wanting to paint loose, and then you come out and you're like, oh, it was too tight. Start with a bigger brush. Don't let yourself use the smaller brushes. Use your other hand. That's another great way to do it. Use your opposite hand. Set a timer. It's another good way. Just don't give yourself only 15, 20. That was not the right color, guys. Just give yourself like 15 minutes and say you have to finish a painting in 15 minutes. That sounds crazy, right? Like insane. But you'll be surprised where you get when you know your back is up against the wall and you only have so much time to do it. This is the correct color. I'm about to find out. All right, this is teal and yellow. I'm trying to do a little bit of the lily pads. Some of the highlights. And then the other thing, the biggest thing is like, just don't get too caught up in the product. Like, recognize that this is practice. Like, you've got to do a lot of work. You have to practice. This is about you exploring and finding your creativity. And goodness knows, like, whoa, see, look, just totally, that was absolutely the wrong color. And it's okay, because I was kind of exploring. I was like, whoops, nope, that was not what I wanted. So just don't take your practice too seriously. If you make a mistake, it's not going to be the end of the world. So, yeah, actually I like this a lot better on this tree in the distance, doing some of these light. It kind of pushes it back. And I like some lighter leaves here. Whether or not that's real, I feel like it looks better. And this is where you can get in and like you can experiment. And all right, the darks, you can push them. All right, so I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna now, since we have, yeah, painting loose is really hard, honestly, guys. Like I used to paint very, very tight and very realistically. And I really had to start setting a timer for myself. And it's so easy to overthink it and overanalyze. And you have to do as much just, you have to just do as much of like letting go. Like painting loose is about trusting your intuition and being okay with possibly failing. But and sometimes you do fail horribly, but you know, then you can figure out how to go over it or walk it back, or you know, so what I'm doing is a little bit of sap green and some Van Dyke brown, and I'm just kind of, it's fairly transparent, and I'm coming back in over some of the sky holes to just further define some areas and kind of, these trunks are too heavy, they're bothering me. Because the leaves really should be a push and pull, and even though this one trunk kind of is the focal point, if it's too heavy, it's a little hard. Yeah, don't give up on being loose. It's all a process. Like I've been painting for 10 years now, and I even professionally, like I have days where I paint, oh, there we go. I needed orange. I just needed some orange. I have days where I am just doing exactly what I want and it feels like you're rocking and rolling. And then there are days where, you know, it's just hard, and not like, some days it doesn't flow, some days it's like any job. You have good days, you have bad days. Yeah, there we go. That orange is what we needed. And just keep going. Yeah, it's going from realistic is tough. It's you kind of, it's easy to get caught in the to follow a photo, and it's hard to kind of go on your own and try to show your expression of what may or may not be there. It's scary, it's vulnerable, but you know, nobody's, the other thing we need to realize is nobody's judging you. Like we're our harshest critics, and we need to give ourselves a little bit more grace. Be a little bit kinder with ourselves. All right, so now I'm going in and I'm just kind of adding, this was a little bit too harsh of a line, so I'm softening the edges at the horizon. I'm gonna add, there's a little bit of like a shoreline. I think that'll help define things a little bit. These lily pads are not what I really want them, but for what this is, they're fun. So, you know, like, as we paint this painting tonight, I want you all to realize, like, is this my best painting? Nope. Like, is this even my best performance for y'all? Absolutely not. But you know, did I learn? Yeah. Did I find some things that I did well? Absolutely. And that's, you know, that is the point of what we are doing. One thing I really like that I did is I love right here. That is a wonderfully transparent dark, and it adds so much warmth and depth to the tree. And I think that is really important. Every time you paint, I think you need to take a look at what you've done and find one thing, even if you're like, oh, it was awful. Make yourself find one thing that you did well. You know, like, and reflect on your successes, and that'll keep you wanting to come back for more. And just focus on, like, just focus on your progress. Okay. So the thing I wanted to really show y'all was to, like, think about trees as blocks of color and not to be intimidated by all the branches and every single leaf, and to really look at it as, like, this is a lot of green and it's dark, and how do we bring the lights through, and how do we have some sky show through? Don't get intimidated by that. Do I add retarder or gel medium? No, because I just use a Stay Wet palette. So that keeps everything pretty wet. But yeah, so this is you know what? This is not a finished painting, but this is a really fabulous study, and I learned a lot from it. And so that's what I want you guys to take away, is, like, this is all a practice, and this is study, and we learn and we advance and we go on to the next round. So thank you guys for coming tonight. Check the links in my bio. I have a free download with some tips about managing color that we've talked about on these nights. And tomorrow I have a wonderful friend of mine coming, and we're going to be talking about, you know, another really interesting creative journey and how your life can take you in unexpected places. So I'm looking forward to having Marguerite with me. And so thank you guys for joining me again. And Wednesday night, we're going to be doing, we're going to have a couple different kind of trees, and we're going to really look at the sky holes, and we're going to kind of look at how different trees have different effects. And, you know, you can definitely see the way a tree, you can tell what the tree is by the space around it rather than just the actual tree itself. So thank you guys for staying home and staying with me tonight, and check out the link in my bio to get your free color tips for artists. So thank y'all, and I will see you again tomorrow night.